So the question I've got for us today is: when it's all said and done, who will have the best legacy out of Javonte Davis, Devin Haney, and Shakur Stevenson? Now, this is an interesting question because all three of these boxers are basically the top of their divisions. I think out of the three of them, we'd easily say Javonte Davis is the biggest puncher. Then I think we'd probably argue that Shakur Stevenson is the best boxer, and then Devin Haney's kind of caught in a middle ground where he's a very very good boxer, but not better than Shakur Stevenson. But he's not a big puncher. He's nowhere near the knockout puncher as Javonte Davis is. That being said, Devin Haney's got more thunder in his hands than Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur Stevenson, I wouldn't say struggles to get his opponents out of there, but that's definitely not his strong suit. Knocking guys out, his strong suit is keeping the pace up, pressuring guys, great combinations, super quick, great technique, in and out. Traditionally very well rounded boxer. And Shakur Stevenson's on the come up. A boxer who I've known for quite some years now. Back when he was an amateur fighting in the national and worlds, and I think he was in the Olympics. I have a feeling I sort of remember him boxing in the Olympics, but boxed amateur at a super high caliber and is doing the same in the pros, and of course is unbeaten. But then you can't discount Javonte Davis because he's also unbeaten and has been one of the biggest names in the sport for years now, and is one of the few boxers in the game that can do respectable numbers in pay per view. There aren't many boxers that can do that in this market. I'm thinking of names: Canelo. Canelo, one who does great pay per view numbers. Anthony Joshua's lost. He's lost three fights now. Four fights altogether, but three in recent succession. Um, Three in recent memory, but he's lost four fights now. So AJ's not going to be much of a pay per view draw anymore. Tyson Fury a bit, I suppose, but again, Tyson Fury's just lost. Usyk isn't that big of a name. He's a big name now because he's beaten Fury and Joshua, but still he's not historically doing crazy pay per view numbers like the likes of Javonte Davis and Canelo Alvarez have been doing. So yeah, well, in terms of the greatest legacy, I'm almost leaning towards Javonte Davis because he's the most popular and will probably retire the most popular. Um, he's a small guy who puts dudes to sleep. He's got a highlight reel knockout after highlight reel knockout, Javonte Davis, and we haven't seen a puncher like him at those divisions in a while. I'm going to say, I can't remember the last guy we've seen quite like that. I'd be super curious to know if you guys have actually seen guys like that in the past recent years. Really, really big knockout puncher at that weight division in the lower classes and just knocking guys out. But then it's hard to be honest, it's even hard to take points against Devin Haney because he lost to Ryan Garcia, who missed weight and failed a drug test. So I don't know how much sort of credit you want to knock off Devin Haney for losing that fight, but he quite dominantly did lose that fight though, and despite the result, that's going to have to impact your legacy because Javonte Davis fought Ryan Garcia and cooked him. That being said, Ryan Garcia was clearly very drained. So obviously you're not going to get the best out of him, but at the end of the day, he agreed to the terms. To be fair, he agreed to the terms. He turned up and fought. Javonte Davis. So it's hard to kind of knock Devin Haney for that because his only loss wasn't technically a loss, even though it was. Even though it was, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I think Devin Haney's a tremendous boxer, and for a long time was my favourite. And to be honest, he rose up the ranks quite quickly. I remember hearing about this kid when he went pro when he was super young, and I was fighting in Mexico. I'm like, this kid's got something about him. If he's doing that at this age, the thing he was like, I don't know how old he was. He was young though. He might have been like 15, 16, And at that point, you're turning pro at 15, 16. You're facing grown men, and people who've never been in a boxing ring before, who've never trained at any sort of level, cannot fathom how impressive it is. A 16-year-old boy beating up grown men pros. Just forget the technique, but just being physically developed enough to be in a ring with these guys. You know, when they hit you, take their punches, box with these guys, and beat them is no small feat at all, at all. And that sort of experience, you know, it's molded him to the fighter he is now, where he's got a very it's one of my favorite boxers to watch. He has been of recent years. I think as you get to the higher level, it's harder to do those sorts of, you know, flair moves, those tricks you were doing early on in the pros when you're fighting the lower level guys. And there's such a gap in talent. So once you reach the higher levels, your Lomachenkos, your Teofimo Lopez's, your George Kambosis's, your Ryan Garcia's, it's harder to pull off those moves and be quite as flashy. But one hell of a boxer, and like I said, with Shakur Stevenson, he's another one. Like I said, you know, technically brilliant. You know, great fundamentals there, and is a fighter who's, like I said, unbeaten and world title fights. Not the biggest star at the moment, but like I'm saying, you know, he's still young. He's got loads of time to develop. I think where he's not got many knockouts, that's going to go against him, because it's clear that Shakur Davis is better than a lot of these guys that he's boxing and has been boxing recently. But when you've got such a gap, this is when you need to be knocking these guys out and showing, you know, the rest of the guys in the division, okay, I'm not just some guy who people can walk through my punches. And to be honest, that's probably might be the perception of him now at the moment, as someone who technically is great, you know, a tremendous athlete, great fundamentals, but he doesn't bang. You can't walk through Gervonta Davis's punches. You know, you can't. If you're a lightweight, you know, super lightweight, and you face Gervonta Davis, you're not walking through his punches. If you take those punches, you're not making it. You're not seeing out the fight. You're not lasting all 12 rounds. Shakur Stevenson, you you can take those punches. To be quite frank, I know. Now, me personally, of course, I could not take those shots. I'm talking about other boxers. You know, they would take those shots, and and to be fair to Shakur, it's not like he's losing these fights. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because he's fighting these guys and he's doing what he needs to do to win in a dominant fashion. It's not like he's underperforming in these fights. He's doing what he's expected to do, where he's dominating the fight for the majority of it and coming out the victor. I definitely would have liked to see more knockouts in his resume at this point. Um, but that will be something that goes against his legacy. So to be honest, out of the three of Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, and Shakur Stevenson, I'm probably going to have to get to Gervonta Davis in terms of, when it's all said and done, who will have the better resume, which is kind of crazy to say, because out of the three of these guys, I would probably say Gervonta Davis is the worst boxer. Yeah, I think he'll have the best legacy come the three of these retire. Interesting take, interesting conversation. We went down a few different routes there. I'd be super curious to know what you guys think of these three: Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, and Shakur Stevenson. Who do you think will have the best legacy when it's all said and done? Let me know in the comments below.